Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. I almost thought I wasn't going to be able to get a video out today. Literally seconds after publishing yesterday's video, my internet died, and long-term viewers of the channel will probably be aware that I usually suffer a disastrous internet failure once a year during the summer, and it usually takes my ISP about a week to get my service back up and running. But literally no longer than the time it took me to go onto Twitter and complain about it, connectivity had been restored, so hooray. Now, today's battle, many of you may have already seen, if you were paying attention to the names of the 3 ships in this division during the pre-battle loading screen. They're all live streamers. There's Mr. Gibbons in the Minotaur, there's Trenlass here in the Shikishima, and that over there in the Des Moines is the artist formerly known as Flambas, who's currently going by the name Warning Peggy 18. Yeah, do you see what he did there? Well, anyway, these 3 reprobates have been divisioning up quite a bit lately. I'm not sure exactly when this battle took place, but I think it was probably the middle of last week sometime. Now, I'm familiar with the characteristics of the Des Moines that Flambas is sailing. I'm familiar with the characteristics of the Minotaur that Mr. Gibbons is sailing, but I don't actually have a Shikishima. And again, there's not that much to understand about the Shikishima. She's basically a Yamato, but armed with 510mm guns, which, well, at the moment, technically, means that this ship has the highest per shell alpha damage of any battleship, or any ship at all, in the game, with 19,400 potential damage on a Citadel hit with these 510mm armor piercing shells. The reason I say technically, at the moment, the highest per shell alpha damage in the game is because, new though she is, she's about to be eclipsed by the brand new, currently being played I believe by the super testers, HMS Incomparable, British tier 10 premium battleship, which, despite being armed with guns 2mm smaller in caliber, 508mm guns, will actually do 19,500 maximum armor piercing damage per shell, 100 more than the Shikishima. What I do know about the Shikishima is, well, very much like the Yamato, she is absolutely not meant to be played as a brawler. She's huge, not very well armoured, her secondaries are garbage, she turns very slowly, her turrets turn even slower. The only real reason she exists is to carry these massive 510mm guns around. And the guns are very, very good, they're highly accurate. But she only has 6 of them. Fortunately, thanks to the accuracy and the fact that the large caliber allows them to overmatch just about everything, the ship does kind of work, despite the fact that she only has 6 of these monster guns, 2 in each of her 3 turrets. See, I'm not usually a big fan of battleships with low gun counts, ships like the Gneisenau for example. The tier 7 German battleship armed with 15-inch guns, but only 6 of them. The Gneisenau doesn't really work for me because of the horrible accuracy of those guns. It really suffers from putting way too many of its eggs in far too few baskets. With the slow reload and the horrible accuracy, it really, really hurts every time you fire the Gneisenau's guns, and you just miss. The Gneisenau's decent secondaries in no way make up for the terrible performance of its paltry 6 thoroughly mediocre guns. The Warspite, 1 tier lower on the other hand, is a bit more like the Shikishima. Again, it's got guns that can overmatch just about everything at its tier, or even 1 tier higher, but they're very accurate and they tend to hit what you shoot at. Plus, presumably in an effort to make up for the low gun barrel count, the Shikishima actually gets a very, very fast reload. 510mm guns that reload in 27 seconds. To be completely fair, the Gneisenau does also get a very fast reload on its 15-inch guns, 26 seconds, but that in no way makes up for the horrible accuracy and the fact that, well, it just means you're missing more often. Of course, the Gneisenau is also armed with torpedoes, which, in combination with the terrible performance of the guns, is probably why so many Gneisenau captains elect to play that battleship just like a really, really big destroyer without a smokescreen. Well, anyway, our 3 heroes are working together here in order to take down the threat of the enemy Grosser Kurfürst over there. You've got Mr. Gibbons on the flank, raining down 152mm armour piercing. Lambas up ahead in the Des Moines, raining down 203mm high explosive on his superstructure. And Tranlas just, doing Shikishima things here. And if you're thinking right now, ooh, that Grosser Kurfürst appears to have made a critical error of judgment, why he didn't just back up and get into safety behind the island that he just appeared from, instead of sailing out here right in front of these three, you're right, he has made a critical error of judgment. Trenlas gave way too much lead on those shots there, although it's a Grosser Kurfürst with the turtleback armour arrangement at this kind of range, you're almost never going to citadel him, even with, I suspect, the big German only came out here in order to get his secondaries going. He's probably a secondary build. And it looks like he realised the mistake that he'd made and did try to slip into concealment through the channel up ahead, and that's when he spotted Mr. Gibbons' torpedoes. Turned to avoid the torpedoes, which would probably have killed him, but, well, didn't do him any good. Now, Trenlas has taken a lot of damage here in the Shikishima, due to a combination of fire not just from the Grosser Kurfürst, but also from the enemy Hindenburg, who's still lobbing shells over the spit of land on the edge of the island up ahead that the Grosser Kurfürst appeared from. He's still there right now. Switched to high explosive, firing blind and still scoring hits. Although I think when he fired that last high explosive salvo from his 8-inch guns, Trenlas was still air spotted at the time. If that Hindenburg has any sense, he's not going to come out from behind that island. Oh dear, is he going to come out from behind that island? Don't get me wrong, the Hindenburg is very well armoured for a cruiser, but it's only well armoured for a cruiser. The Grosser Kurfürst is extremely well armoured for a battleship, and you saw how well he did. Oh, that was... well, it wasn't a bad amount of damage. But these are 510mm guns. I'm kind of expecting a lot more from them, and they just don't really seem to be delivering so far. I don't know if this is what the guns are actually like, or Trenlas has just been, unlucky. Let's see what he can do with the next salvo. Okay, yeah. Again, nothing amazing, but that's a bit more like it. I think it's safe to say that the Hindenburg is doomed now. Mr. Gibbons, of course, has been raining down 6-inch armour piercing on him consistently. Looks like the Hindenburg's trying to delete his Minotaur before his inevitable demise. And request denied. So there's Trenlas's first kill. Again though, he really suffered, mostly because of his poor armour, under the Hindenburg's 8-inch high explosive shells. On the bright side though, the team, and when I say the team, I mean our three heroes here, okay, with some assistance from a friendly Hindenburg and a Yamato, have cleaned up this flank. Unfortunately, doing so has cost them all of their destroyers elsewhere on the map and one of their cruisers, and the enemy team are in possession of all 3 of the capture circles. And the enemy team are not far short of 300 points ahead. So it's at about this moment, as Trenlas gets a heel underway, the team loses another battleship, and the enemy team go to more than 400 points ahead, that our 3 heroes are saying to themselves, we're going to lose this, aren't we? And yes, there's a very good chance they are. Because this is all that remains of their team, with the exception of the Midway cowering behind an island up to the north, with a Halland closing in on him from one side, and a Shimakaze and a Zhao closing in on him from the other, so he's probably going to die soon too, which means the point situation is going to start getting worse before it starts getting better. After a hurried tactics discussion over voice comms, our heroes decide that the only thing they can do is take this initial cap circle at Charlie and then just keep pushing on through, hopefully without anybody dying along the way, because that is pretty much the only way they're going to win this. And that, of course, is even assuming that the game is winnable at this point. The enemy team are now 500 points ahead. There is still more than half of the battle to go, however, and it doesn't really matter how many points ahead the enemy team are if you manage to catch and sink all of them. Unfortunately, they have, as expected, just lost the Midway, which means the enemy team are now 650 points ahead. And if this rate of attrition continues, it doesn't really matter how many of the team are still up for a fight. The enemy team are going to reach 1,000 points and done within the next couple of minutes. They are at least contesting the capture circle at Charlie and slowing down the points gain of the enemy team. But I mean, look at this, they only have 125 points. That's 175 less than they started the battle with. At this point, they could really use somebody on the enemy team trying to win a little bit harder than they need to in order to grab some points and slow down the rate that the enemy team are outstripping him. I mean, the poor old Montana over there isn't trying to win harder, he's trying to get out there and stay alive and not hand points to Flambas, Trenlas and Mr. Gibbons, but, well, it doesn't look like he's going to get away with it. They're equally desperately trying to focus him down and kill him, and honestly, I think they probably are. The Montana is not able to go undetected. Come on, boys. See if you can get yourself above 200 points for the first time since the beginning of this match. Trenlas gets him. And they haven't quite managed to go above 200 points. But, well, you know, we'll take it. They've taken the cap. This is good. And it's all about the focus fire now. Come on. Nail that Halland. There we go. There's finally 200 points plus. And the number of kills are at least even if the points absolutely are not. The enemy is still 600 points ahead. So that's 2 kills and a cap in less than a minute. And that's not a bad thing. But what that actually is what we refer to as a good start. Because it's going to take a lot more than that to win this battle. It appears that anybody on the enemy team who was trying to win harder is now dead. Or is it? Who's that? Oh, hello. That would be the Zhao. Please keep shooting, Mr. Zhao, so that we can all focus our fire on you. The Zhao seems to be determined to finish off the Yamato up to the north. The Yamato on perilously low health, who seems to have a bit of a Stalingrad problem as well, or will very, very soon. As if the Zhao wasn't enough of an issue. Yep, Yamato's dead. That puts the enemy team back up over 900 points and drops our hero's team back down to below 200 points. Nobody can shoot at the Stalingrad. It looks like the Zhao is going to go dark. Wait, no, he's still shooting. And they've spotted the Marceau. It's going to be easier to kill the Marceau. He does not have a smokescreen. And he's a lot closer, so the team switch their fire to the Marceau. When you have a team that consists largely of cruisers and battleships, any chance that you get, well, entirely of cruisers and battleships, any chance that you get to nail an enemy destroyer, you grab with both hands. And they're definitely focusing the Marceau down as he tries to flee to the north. And he's clearly still shooting, and that's basically what got him killed. So they've nailed the Marceau. They're still not above 300 points. The enemy team are still above 900 points, but they're now contesting the central cap at Bravo. Now, what you didn't see happening here from Trenlas's perspective was that for a brief fraction of a second, the Shimakaze was spotted on around about 300 health. And Flambas wasted no time in shooting at him, hit him with 3 or 4 shells, but all of them over-penetrated, which means that Shimakaze is currently on about 300 health. They've killed the Stalingrad. That's bought them some more time. They're still below 300 points, but they've managed to reduce the enemy team to below 900 points for the first time in a while. Unfortunately for Trenlas, he has been visually spotted, and it's not the Stalingrad, and it's not the Zhao doing it. That means that the Shimakaze, who is still alive on a fraction of hit points, can see him, and is sending torpedoes on the way. Well, that's the bad news. Trenlas was expecting them. He's going to take one of those torpedoes. The good news is that the Zhao, who should know better, is still spotted, because he's still shooting back. The even worse news is that the Shimakaze has more than one torpedo launcher, but the Zhao just, well, refuses to take the hint. The Zhao has excellent stealth and is a very fast cruiser. He should easily be able to go undetected here and hide behind any of these islands up to the north, while launching torpedoes at anybody dumb enough to be chasing after him. He keeps shooting at the Hindenburg, which means he stays detected, and he does get the Hindenburg, and finally stops shooting, but day late and a dollar short. So the Zhao's down. That was a points neutral exchange. But the team have capped Bravo to go with Charlie, which means that the enemy team, which right now consists of just the carrier and that Shimakaze on around about 300 health, who's still looking at Trenlass as Shikishima launching torpedoes and licking his lips, and I think Trenlass is probably going to take one more here. And his damage control is on cooldown. That's a permanent flood, and he doesn't have any heals left. Bugger. He's dead. He's going to sink in less than the 26 seconds it's going to take to get the damage control back up. Yep, there he goes. Trenlass is down. The enemy team, thanks to that Shimakaze, who probably only has about 300 health left, or less, are now on 968 points. Right now, Mr. Gibbons, anticipating that the Shimakaze, or hoping and praying that the Shimakaze is going to try to flip capture point Charlie in order to intercept and kill him if he tries it, and the Shimakaze is going to be on such low health that a single hit would do it, regardless of whether or not it overpenetrates. Meanwhile, Flambass is flipping capture point Alpha, which is absolutely essential, but once he's completed doing that, he's going to head south, because he has to catch and kill the carrier as well, because while holding all three of the caps is good, there isn't enough time left in this match to make up the point difference between the two teams from holding the caps alone. So he must catch and kill the Max Immelmann. Obviously, if Mr. Gibbons could catch and kill the Shimakaze as well, it's a win, regardless of how many points the enemy team have. But you can't count on the Shimakaze being dumb enough to fall for it. Equally, you can't really count on the Max Immelmann being dumb enough to be just sitting there broadside on, waiting to get shelled by a Des Moines that he knows is coming because he's pummeling him with airstrikes. Yibbo in the Minotaur defending Charlie, praying that the Shimakaze is going to be dumb enough to slip in between these islands and get himself detected. But the Shimakaze is not falling for that old trick. Turns out he's seen a couple of John Wayne movies and he knows what an ambush looks like. Which means that with just 3 minutes to go and the enemy team still 500 points ahead, Flambass in the Des Moines is going to have to catch and kill the Max Immelmann in order to give them a prayer of winning this game. But the Immelmann, which is only 1 knot slower than the Des Moines, should be miles away from here by now, because he's had at least 5 minutes warning that Flambass is on his way to do exactly that. So the chances of the Immelmann being in a position to get sunk are of course 100%. Yeah, there he is. Stationary, in open water, not even hiding behind the island. And I don't know if you noticed, dropping his torpedoes too close to Flambass's Des Moines to give the warheads a chance to arm, while sitting broadside on in the face of an onrushing Tier 10 American auto-loading heavy cruiser, spitting out super heavy 8-inch armour-piercing shells at a frankly terrifying rate of fire. And, well, the Immelmann is not only not moving, he's not even angled. He's just begging to be citadeled. I think we may actually have a chance here, boys. Because the Immelmann is not going anywhere. Go on, Flambass. You've got this. He's not even trying. He is literally just sitting there saying, come on, have some points. It's on the house. One more salvo ought to do it. And he's done. They are now 250 points behind. But there's only a minute of the game left. Are those 3 caps going to be enough to make the difference in points in the time remaining? Honestly, I don't really know. Mr. Gibbons is no longer spotted, which means that the Shimakaze has probably hauled ass out of there. He's not taking any chances though, he's just concentrating on not dying because the Shimakaze doesn't have to see you to flood the gaps between those islands with torpedoes. Likewise, Flambass down to the south is also just concentrating on not dying and avoiding any attacks from the remaining aircraft on the Immelmann. Remember that Shimakaze, because Flambass did spot him when he was on 3,000 health earlier for a fraction of a second and managed to hit him with 3 or 4 8-inch shells, all of which overpenetrated. Which means that Shimakaze is out there somewhere, probably on less than 300 health. With less than 30 seconds to go, the team are only 70 points behind. They have all 3 of the caps. The Shimakaze has just noped the hell out of there. He's not willing to take the risk, and he's probably sitting there with his fingers crossed somewhere, hoping that it's going to be enough. But is it? And no. Well, it was for the Shimakaze, but sadly not for Mr. Gibbons, Trenlass, and Flambas, who came from behind against what looked like, and in fact was, an insurmountable points lead, where at one stage they were 720 points behind, to lose at the last second by a mere 25 points. I can tell you there were a couple of plus ones for the captain of that Shimakaze at the end of this battle. Unfortunately for our three heroes, it was actually the enemy Shimakaze who was the hero of this match. And I hope you enjoyed watching this battle, because that is it for today. As always, folks, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.